6:23 p.m. Open our log. It's 11/20/2023 for the date for Monday. We were Genesee, Roseman, California. As if things aren't going any other screwed up fashion. I was watching Rachel Maddow on MSNBC. I still am. She's in commercial break. She was reminding me of several countries that have really turned into authoritative despots. That people who worship the Trump are going to be experiencing his wrath. How media is being shut down left and right across the globe for those who go against those who are in authoritative regimes. Argentina just hired a lunatic. People were wearing "Make Argentina Great Again" hats. And this guy is threatening to shut down their banking system, switch over to the United States Bank, shut down the media and the Department of Education. He just got his post, and already he's threatening to close off a hell of a lot of banking institutions. Kind of remind me of some of those assholes and assholerettes who keep saying that when they get in office, they're going to be shutting down different departments that we depend upon for safety, security, education, or our livelihood because they don't like them. They don't like the media. So they want to go after major organizations such as MSNBC and NBC. Probably not to mention the CNN as well. Leave Fox alone because Fox was good to them. But anybody else wasn't good to them, well, they're going after them left and right. And this really, really doesn't help me much. There are some tubers out there that made some concerns regarding just how bad our freedoms and liberties are going out the window. Earlier today, we heard an appeals court practically gutting the Voting Registrations Act. Protections that the civil liberty units uh, had tried to go and push cases through the Supreme Court to win their cases are now going to be shot to hell because an appeals court and also a district judge decided it's no damn good anymore. I may have tried to feel good for a little bit concerning about taking care of the stuff I've got, but what happens if I happen to make it through college and it's going to be the last graduating class of that particular college? Or worse off, I won't graduate, period, because the college will close down because we have authoritative assholes decide that the education system's no damn good. They got to shut down the college for some stupid reason. And then I was saying something else that was making me flinch worse than I saw this documentary movie about Skokie, Illinois. No, it was a different town, a different state having the swastika party marching up and down, telling the Jews, guess what? We're in town. I'm going to turn on Maddow right now. I'm going to turn her up.
states where voters and voting rights groups were able to sue to get fair representation for black voters. And they were able to win. They won surprising, meaningful, consequential victories for black voters, thanks to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The cases appeared to open a path toward undoing racially discriminatory congressional maps of the past, state by state, one by one. Until now, until today. Today, a panel of 3 federal judges, all appointed by Republicans, issued a decision in a case that was brought by the Arkansas chapter of the NAACP, challenges the fairness of congressional maps there. And these judges in the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, they ruled that private citizens, private entities, private groups can't bring these cases anymore. Can't bring the kind of cases that we have seen succeed in Alabama and Georgia and Louisiana and other states. The judges ruled that entities, private entities, can't bring those kinds of cases. Actually, the only entity that can bring that kind of a case, is the United States Attorney General. And if you can't get the United States Attorney General to bring a case like this on your behalf, then what happens in your state? And what happens to the cases that have been decided already? What happens to other states where voters want to challenge a racially discriminatory gerrymander of the congressional maps? How long before this case gets to the United States Supreme Court, and what's going to happen when it gets there? Joining us now is Janae Nelson. She's president of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm introducing her now. She's going to be with us right after the break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Okay. Maybe a few liberal states will be able to get by, but if this is going to be a law in the land at this point over here, because one district judge had a burp his ass in a district, and so did the appellate court in a certain district. Imagine what the already conservative Supreme Court's going to be like. I'm seeing in my own lifetime dismantling of anything and everything that was American. Not the fictitious thing about being fair play at this point over here. Rules, regulations, laws, things that we held on to, precedents, some things that actually meant the damn thing to us. And now, where's the ire in America? Where's the ire in everybody? Where's the damn riots? We've seen people pissed and moaned about Trump not getting back in the office because he got voted out, and we had the Trumplicans riot, stormed Congress. Now they're getting their asses thrown in jail because of it. Well, we can't get something almost just as massive, protesting Congress and their state legislators. Democracy ends when people don't do shit. And again, I blame the voters because they're too damn stupid not to know the difference. I said it before in my other videos, and I'm still going to hold on to it. The voters are stupid. Or else they're thoughtless, careless, and they don't care. They're apathetic. They're indifferent. So they're not motivated enough. And when they start losing their freedom, they'll start bitching and griping about it, and I'll have to point a finger at them saying, where the hell were you when we needed you right then and there? You said let the other guy take care of it. Well, guess what? The other guy got busted. What about you going to do? What are you going to do about it? I don't know. Guess what? Say hello to authoritative regime. We have a weakened enough president in office. We have a screwed up Congress right now. And we have the state legislatures making their moves at this point. I'm waiting for another major civil war to happen. Some people are actually looking forward to bloodshed. Start firing on each other for this damn thing. It's going to be worse than that. All the freedoms and everything else taken away except for those who are in the power elite that they have. And they say, hell with everybody. That's what's being said right now. Hell with everybody. That's what we have. And other people don't like it. You know what? They don't have to like it. If they like it so much, they'll be brain dead about it. They're so damn busy with their damn cell phones and everything else, they don't bother to see what's going on. And the independents are still winding their asses off left and right, realizing that they're going to be open season, especially when we have Trump and his ilk getting into office and screwing things over left and right. We are in for it. These are definitely the day of days. I'll be looking not forward to the day I go into court, have to defend myself because I used the freedom of speech to talk about what I needed to talk about. I'll probably must be like Russia has with this one protester who stuck signs in a store to let people know what rotten things that Russia did. And she's got to spend 7 days, actually spent 7 years in a gulag.
Passed in 1965, the Voting Rights Act was one of the most significant achievements of the civil rights movement, undoing decades of discriminatory Jim Crow laws and protecting against egregious racial gerrymanders. But the law has been under legal assault almost since its inception. Today, a federal appeals court moved to drastically weaken it. Should today's ruling stand, it would remove perhaps the most important facet of the Voting Rights Act. The majority of challenges to discriminatory laws have come from private citizens and civil rights groups. Joining us now is Janae Nelson. She's president of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Ms. Nelson, thanks very much for joining us, especially on short notice with this surprise ruling tonight.
Happy to be here, Rachel.
So let me just ask you, I feel like for the last 10 years, since the Supreme Court ruling in 2013 that really took a lot of the power of the Voting Rights Act away, we have been talking about this landmark piece of legislation, this sort of moral crucible piece of American legislation, as having been severely weakened. What is important about tonight's ruling as compared to the other attacks on the Voting Rights Act that we've seen from this conservative court?
Well, tonight's ruling upends almost 60 years of precedent in which, as you noted, individuals and civil rights groups have enforced Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act to make sure that our country has a democracy that is free from racial discrimination. It's something that we've never fully achieved, but the Voting Rights Act and Section 2 in particular has done such muscular work to advance us toward this goal. And this is the first decision to say unequivocally that individuals and civil rights groups like the Legal Defense Fund cannot bring lawsuits under this key provision. And it's interesting that you bring up Shelby County versus Holder, which, as you noted, 10 years ago gutted what was the most transformative provision of the Voting Rights Act, Section 5. And in that decision, Chief Justice Roberts, in striking down that key part of the Voting Rights Act, pointed to Section 2 and said, you can still use Section 2 to vindicate your rights. There's still a vehicle to address racial discrimination in our elections. And yet, a panel of the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals in this country said no. Individual voters, citizens, civil rights groups, good government groups who have brought litigation under Section 2 for decades now can no longer do that. And the only possible vehicle is through the Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney General. That is woefully inadequate for so many reasons. Not only does DOJ have limited resources and limited time and limited bandwidth, as we know, not every Department of Justice is the same. And in the last administration, we saw voting rights suits come to a screeching halt. In fact, the Legal Defense Fund had to step in and effectively be a Department of Justice during that period of that administration. We can't allow our voting rights to depend on the political whims or machinations of a particular administration. Individual citizens deserve the right to vindicate the right to vote, which is so fundamental to our democracy.
Thinking about the movements on the right, both in and outside of the legal system, that have sort of brought us to this place today, it's hard not to, I think, ascribe the worst motives to this assault on the Voting Rights Act. I mean, the Voting Rights Act is designed to remove racial discrimination from the voting system. If you are trying to get rid of the Voting Rights Act, you are trying to get rid of protections against racial discrimination in voting, and it's very hard to get away from that simple, fundamental truth of it. But when it comes to this particular part of the way the Voting Rights Act works, Section 2, which, as you say, allows groups like the Legal Defense Fund, allows groups, individual groups, allows other voting rights groups to bring these cases to test whether or not voting provisions are racially discriminatory. Is there some beef that the right has with that in particular? Is there some case that they feel like is particularly wrong, or there's something that they think has been egregiously mishandled in the way that Section 2 has been operative in states across the country as for all the decades that this has been in place?
You know, what's fascinating, Rachel, is that we've brought suits against Democrats and Republicans. We are a nonpartisan organization. We enforce Section 2 and all other provisions of the Voting Rights Act on behalf of voters to ensure that no matter who the actor is, no matter what party they might be affiliated with, that they don't trample on that fundamental right. So really, there's no reason to cast this in partisan terms. There's no reason for any party to feel that the Voting Rights Act is not a fair exercise of congressional authority to ensure that the 14th and 15th Amendments of our Constitution are honored when we talk about this critical right that undergirds our entire democracy. But of course, if you are prone to manipulating rules, manipulating districting lines, manipulating elections in every possible way to win against a majority of the people in this country, then yes, you might have a beef with the Voting Rights Act, but that is no way to run a democracy. That is no way to ensure that all voices are equally heard.
Janae Nelson, president of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, joining us as we're absorbing this move from the Eighth Circuit Federal Court of Appeals. It will presumably, it may be reheard en banc by all the judges in that circuit. It will certainly find its way to the United States Supreme Court. Janae, we'd love to talk to you again as this continues to move. Thanks for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Rachel.
All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Well, that really puts a dampener on things, especially when one wants to make sure our elections are fair, under whose guidelines and whose version is something fair. We're in for it, boys and girls.